Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another F1 chat. We just had the Austrian Grand Prix of 2024. That just happened, didn't we? We just had Max rolling back the years in ways we didn't expect. Well, as a lot of you know from one of the previous videos, I'm starting to build respect for Max Verstappen. I'm starting to build a liking for Max Verstappen. So now to see this 2021 rollback, how am I feeling about everything? How am I feeling towards Max Verstappen? How am I feeling towards everything that has gone on? Well, I've seen a lot of reaction videos about Max being at fault and everything like that. And by the way, I do agree. I think in terms of everything, Max, in terms of the driving, was at fault for a good portion, a large portion, in fact, of the moves that he made in defending against Lando Norris. But I'm sort of going to do a bit of defending of him. No, I'm not going to be one of those blind defenders that go, "He did nothing wrong. What are you talking about? He was driven off the circuit. He didn't do move under braking or anything like that." No, let's be clear. Let's be factual. He did move under braking. He did drive off the track when he wasn't actually being forced wide, and he didn't leave a car's width to the left. But there was an interesting thing that I saw that, or much rather heard, that I think has made me feel a little bit sorry for Max. You see, you hear over the radio people like GP, his race engineer, Christian Horner, even when they were speaking in terms of interviews and everything like that. And no one was being assertive over the radio in terms of the way they were speaking towards Max. And what do I mean by that? It seems a bit ridiculous to imagine that any of his team would go, "Sorry, mate, you were at fault. You need to pack it in. You need to wind it in." But you do have this sort of code speak that does happen over radios to drivers to almost go, guys, pack it in, right? Things like get your head down, focus on the race. Don't worry. Don't push on this. Don't press on this. Don't feel the injustice. Don't carry the injustice over because it's going to affect the way that you are in your driving. Right? We had it with Lewis Hamilton where he was told on regular occasions, sometimes even by Toto Wolff himself, going, "Lewis, get your head down. Just focus. I want you to forget what just happened here." Right? Stop taking it so personally. The same has happened when it comes to conversations with Leclerc, although I think sometimes that used to go a little bit overboard, especially when Mattia Binotto was in charge. And other drivers have got a similar sort of thing. I think George Russell has had a couple of times where Toto Wolff or whoever his race engineer is has gone, "Focus now. I want you to calm down. I want you to focus, George." And it surprises me that no one does that with Max. Like, you heard GP over it going, "Yeah, we absolutely agree with you, Max. It's ridiculous, dive bombing and everything like that." Completely ignoring the fact that dive bombing was very much Max Verstappen's style in terms of overtaking. You heard Christian Horner in interviews going, "Oh no, see, he did nothing wrong. Don't understand what's going on. It all feels very unjust against us and everything like that." And it's just like, is no one being a grown up at Red Bull? Is there no one being a grown up and going, "Do you know what? It was a very feisty battle between the two, and it did spill over from both of them." At least that, just some sort of maturity in going, Max also did go overboard. Max needs to own up as well, right? Because here's the thing, Max is still young. I know he's been in the Formula One game for a long time, but he is still young. He is still somebody who is to be moulded. And to basically be coddled. Is that the right word? But to basically be pandered to and pampered to go, yeah, you're right, Max. You're right in everything. Everything you're saying is absolutely correct. Of course, it's ridiculous you were given a 10-second penalty for something that you did. But all of that is just feeding into his thinking that he is right. And I'm sorry, today he was wrong. And no one's telling him that. And Andreas Stella made a really good point. These incidents that Max has had were the same from 2021 and 2020 and 2019 and 2018 and 2017 and 2016. And no one is ironing it out. And yes, I've heard some people say about the stewards about ironing it out in terms of the rules, but where is the training in terms of that? Where is this working things out? Right? You see, we're now getting to the point where drivers are getting fed up of getting out of the way of Max, and now we're getting this sort of situation, right? We saw it with Lewis Hamilton, where the second half of 2021 he got fed up and was like, "Do you know what? Screw it. If that's how Max wants to behave, that's how that I'm going to work with that, right?" And that is the thing that's crazy for me is the fact of people are like going, "Is Max going to mature? Is Max calming down?" He isn't if people are going to make him think that he's the one in the right all the time. And that is what is happening. You know, that a really classic example of a mature response is something in terms of similar to what happened with George Russell and Valtteri Bottas. You know that incident in Imola, right? Despite the fact that George Russell was almost the golden child that was going to take the Mercedes seats, Toto Wolff still went, no, he was out of line there, and he needs to apologise. He needs to own up. He needs to grow up. He needs to grow up quickly. And no one is doing that for Max. But why is no one doing that for Max? What is going on? Is there something else at play here? And I think there is, sadly, two things at play here. Firstly, Max is a wonder. He's been described as Ayrton Senna, and I think we're starting to see that, right? I'm almost starting to see remnants of Ayrton Senna's incident in Japan, where he he drove Alan Prost off the track on the first corner just to win the World Championship. And that's Max Verstappen's style, but it's brought him results so young. So young. And if it works, try it again. And there is that side of it. But where is like the people around him, right? The support around him. I always look in terms of like the different dynamics in terms of this, right? And people used to compare him to Lewis Hamilton and the way that he was. And you look at the people that were around Lewis Hamilton, right? You had his dad, who would actually train him in terms of that side of things, and would like give him helpful tips, and maybe Jos Verstappen is doing with Max. But Hamilton also had Ron Dennis. And Ron Dennis was a guy who didn't take crap from anybody, for want of a better word, and wouldn't be afraid to bring Lewis Hamilton in line if he was out of line. And the maturity that you saw from Lewis Hamilton wasn't necessarily because he had grown up or anything like that, but purely down to the fact of he had been brought into line. McLaren was a place of rules, and by the way, it was way too strict to a certain extent, but it had this thing of you need to do your part for the team. You need to show a bit of maturity for the team, and we're not going to be afraid to tell you off to sort that out. I don't think Red Bull do the same for Max. And I think this is where it gets a bit sad here because you look at people like Sebastian Vettel. Now, I have to say, by the way, he matured and grew up very quickly when he at the last couple of years of Ferrari and all of that. But the way that he was towards Lewis Hamilton in like 2019 and 2018 seemed to reflect almost like this Red Bull side of things, that he was still a kid. He was still a child. And I wouldn't want for someone's amazing talent to be overshadowed by their reputation. And I feel like Red Bull is damaging Max Verstappen's reputation in terms of his racecraft. Maybe this is a bit of a controversial take on this, but I get the feeling that Christian Horner's alleged activity and the image, the perception that people have got of him now, means that he's lost control of Red Bull. You've heard it from Jos Verstappen that there seems to be a lack of respect towards Christian Horner, a lack of respect towards everything going on. Helmut Marko, you've heard sometimes a couple of times from him. And even Max has commented saying it's not felt right. And it does sadly feel like that because of that, Christian hasn't got the guts to say anything bad about Max. Because could you imagine that? What right do you have to tell me off? You are the one of the worst in terms of, the way that your behaviour. What right do you have to tell me? What right do you have in terms of managing the team when you're signing on a driver purely for the money, who is dragging the team back? That could be argued. I get the feeling something really bad is happening at Red Bull. Obviously, Adrian Newey has left. Obviously, that has happened. But something else seems to be happening, and it's sad, really. It really is sad, right? I'm thankful now that I'm looking at this purely from a neutral perspective, right? In 2021, I was looking at this purely as I wasn't a member of Team LH, but I was a Lewis Hamilton fan. And so everything felt very bitter, very sour because of it was Max Verstappen hurting my boy, that side of it. But now looking at it from the situation of Max Verstappen and Lando Norris, I like them both. I genuinely do. I like Lando Norris and I like Max Verstappen the way he has been. And I don't want to see either of them in this situation because we could end up with genuinely where the title is won by a crash. And as amazing as the Senna Prost years were, and as amazing as other incidents, trying to think of one right now, like the 2021 season where there was a lot of incidents that happened. The very last thing I would like is for races like this, where winners are decided by accidents. And as wonderful as I feel towards George Russell, and I do like George Russell, by the way, Max Verstappen has lost out. Even though he's extending the championship, he's lost out. He's now got a black mark against his name. I don't know in terms of the penalty points, is he going to be close to a race ban? I can't remember. I've got to be looking into that. But Lando Norris has definitely lost out. Yes, his reputation has shone a bit more because, in my view, he did very little wrong, but he's still out of a race. He's still suffering as a result of it, and he shouldn't have to. It was a very controversial thing that happened, and obviously it's 50-50 in terms of who's going to support and who isn't, but I would be very interested to see your perspective. So, Guys, please give me your takes. Was Verstappen in the right as he said? Was Lando Norris completely in the right as he said? What's going to be the future in terms of their friendship versus their rivalry? What's going to be the future in terms of fallouts from now on? Let me know your thoughts, guys. Continue to like, subscribe, follow the channel, and until the next race, which is literally next week, so we've barely got any time to relax. But take care and see you around. Take care.